pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And as a reminder, our next meeting will be Wednesday, December 28th, 2016. Marie isn't here tonight, so the two alternates will be Commissioner Howe and Commissioner Parker will be sitting in, and the other voting members will be Commissioner LaRanger, Commissioner Soares, and myself. And acting secretary tonight will be Commissioner LaRanger. So, next item on the agenda is
approval of the minutes from last month
of October 26, 2016. Commissioners had a chance to review these, and let's see here. Commissioner Howe will not be voting on the minutes of the Commissioner Posey, Commissioner Soares, Commissioner Chassie is not here, Commissioner and myself. Oh, here's Marie. Here she comes. All right, hold on.
Good evening.
We were just going to approve the minutes of last month's meeting.
Keep going.
Okay.
Keep going.
So Commissioner Chassie is here, so Commissioner Parker will not be voting, but Commissioner Howe will be voting. Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
I'm sorry, before you go on, you had named 6 people to vote. Did you want 6 people to vote?
No. I will rename the 5 people that are voting on this. Commissioner Soares, Commissioner Chassie, Commissioner LaRanger, and on this particular vote will be Commissioner Posey and myself. So,
For the minutes.
for the minutes, just for the minutes. Okay, motion would be in order.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the Planning Commission approve the minutes of the regular meeting of October 26, 2016.
Motion was made. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? If none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay. Commissioner LaRanger will step down as acting secretary, and Commissioner Chassie will continue with the agenda.
Okay. Let me find the right one
Go
here.
ahead, take it.
Public hearings would be next, and there are none.
Okay.
So the next order of business would be pending applications. There are none. Right?
Great.
I'm reading this right?
Yep.
Next one would be new applications. There are none. And then we have, stop here.
Read that.
All right, so the next item is zoning commission referrals.
And there are none.
Thank you.
Okay.
But, Mr. Chairman, we're going to have you add a motion to the agenda to add Attorney Lacey. He's come here tonight to speak to you for a few minutes about 8-24 referrals.
Well, it's always good to have a review about that. Thank you for coming. So, a motion would be in order to allow Attorney Lacey to briefly discuss 8-24.
So moved.
Second.
A motion was made and second. Any discussion? If none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Attorney Lacey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Am I on?
You're on.
I'm on.
Attorney Lacey, I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Attorney Lacey. There was a handout that you gave. Can Secretary Marie, does she have a copy of that? Can I have a copy also?
We're kind of low on, I brought 8, but that might not be enough. I know Mr. Stroderman might have one.
So are you asking me to read this into the record, or just accept it as...
No, I just want to make sure you had a copy.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm sorry for interrupting, Attorney Lacey.
Well, that's quite all right. Mr. Flanagan asked me to just speak to you briefly about 8-24. Once a year, there's a seminar for new municipal attorneys. And invariably, the speaker says, if you walk out of here with anything, remember 8-24. Because it's a jurisdictional sort of thing, and unless a planning commission approves almost any municipal project, any significant municipal project, could be sewer, could be the town dump, could be obviously the sale or acquisition of property. Unless that planning commission has spoken on it, unless it has been referred to them, the whole project can stop. And many municipal attorneys over the years have been embarrassed for getting the 824 referral. So it is very, very important. In my memo, I indicated the actual subjects of 824 referral, and there's four main ones. If you're widening, extending, or doing any transportation work on a road or a bridge. The second is to acquire or sell land, any municipal land. It does list parks and playgrounds and airports, but any municipal land virtually needs an 8-24 referral. If you're going to extend any housing or do a redevelopment project, there was actually a redevelopment project in Fairfield County that was totally stopped because the Planning Commission had not passed on an 8-24 referral. And of course it applies to utilities, and there's plenty of cases where sewer projects were stopped because there was no 8-24 referral. So it is very important. And speaking with Mr. Flanagan, I know that sometimes it's frustrating for you, all these commissioners, because you've got a situation where you get a piece of paper from the city council, you don't even know what's up. And maybe we have to work on some better communication on that regard. It's like many other planning commission or land use situations. You have 35 days to act. If you don't give permission to go forward, the legislative body, which would be the city council, can override that with a 2/3 vote. So with 5 votes, they could override your decision. But it is still a very important planning commission function. There's a lot of ins and outs that I don't think we need to go into. They've changed the statute over the years. They allow it to go to the Board of Finance before you necessarily have to pass on it. It's something that's often kind of viewed as a minor thing, but it really is a very major power of all planning commissions. Now, I suppose you're looking for some guidance, and I was telling Bob earlier that there's probably only a couple of dozen cases that have really addressed this statute, and the statute itself in all those cases, they're very technical. Did you follow all the steps? But I think, in my mind, the 8-24 referral is a much higher level of referral. And you're kind of taking that high-level view. And probably the best way to do this, if I was a commissioner, I would look at my plan of conservation and development. And the commission did some excellent work. We have a very up-to-date plan that was put into place last year. And it can help you. If the city acquires a residential lot because of code enforcement activity, and it's in the middle of a residential neighborhood, and we want to sell it for residential purposes, obviously that's going to fit in quite well with the plan of conservation and development. But our plan, which I'm not a real student of, but I have read it, it seems to be quite a detailed document, a very forward-looking document, and I think that would give you as commissioners, a pretty good idea about where the city wants to go. And would this particular request, this particular proposal put before you commissioners make sense in terms of that overall document? So I think that's about the best I can do. As you know, we can't weigh in on any particular application. Obviously, that's all for you to decide, but I've tried to just make some general comments that might be helpful to you in going on, and I'll pass along Mr. Flanagan's concern that the City Council really should communicate where they want to go with a particular proposal.
More sooner than later. And we've had a lot of issues.
So you can have an idea on what to decide.
So, am I correct to say that there is no dollar limit on the 8-24? That have, if it's $10,000 versus $100,000, it has to come to us?
Great question. The statute says substantial.
Substantial.
And I suppose that's what keeps
you in business.
Keeps lawyers in business. I'm just trying to think about a case. Again, a Fairfield County case. It was a parking lot, and the commission approves, don't hold me to the numbers, but like takes to municipal property and build a 200-car parking lot. And then the council comes along and they say, well, we're going to acquire some more property and we're going to expand it. And they just about doubled it to over 400 cars. And they felt that that was going to help the merchants and the buildings downtown. And then the assessor comes along and says, well, gee, your property's more valuable because all you Main Street folks now have 400 parking spaces. So some of the developers and the merchant owners took the town to court and said, no. There was no 8-24 referral on a 400-car parking lot. My increase in assessment is invalid. And the court said, yeah, 200 to 400 spaces, that's a big change. And it's a substantial change. I would imagine, replacing a pipe or upgrading a pipe in an existing right-of-way wouldn't be considered a substantial change. I just wish I could give you a dollar amount or
Okay.
It's all kind of subjective, Mr. Chairman. It really is. But that's a really good question.
Because I know every time we always, we try to get at least a yearly review on the 8-24, just to keep our minds, thinking about it, and nobody's ever mentioned a dollar amount. And there isn't. So.
There really isn't.
Okay.
No.
All right. Thank you.
So whose better judgment answers that? If that comes across our desk, are you the one that says it's 100, so it's substantial? Is it the chair that says it's substantial enough to where would that lie, so to speak?
Well, why don't we reason that out? As a practical matter, the commission wouldn't have the proposal before the commission. There wouldn't be a proposal unless somebody on the council felt that it was substantial. So I don't mean to avoid, but I mean, if it comes to you,
sure.
somebody's already decided that it was substantial. I guess it would be up to the courts if it didn't come to you and they raised the jurisdictional question that there was no 8-24 referral. So I would say if you get it, you should make a determination. I don't think it would be good advice from my office to say, oh, that's really not substantial. I would rule on it.
If you put a dollar amount, if we were to put a dollar amount on it, at one point, a year later, that amount could change anyway, or in dollar equivalent, and there's an argument about what substantial could change over and over. I think it's a good idea not to have a dollar amount, just for that reason, because
That's a good
how
point,
is a
John.
substantial,
Yeah.
specific dollar amount arrived at?
Yep.
I think you have a good
And you could have
rationale for it.
You could have a very small corner of property that wasn't worth too much that would have a significant change, I suppose.
Ask you another question. What you just did for us, do you do the same thing for others, specifically the city council periodically, so they know what it is and the importance of it coming directly from you? Not for a specific case,
But in general,
or for the fact that it exists.
no. We don't. We'd be happy to.
I don't even
You know,
periodically.
maybe I should circulate this memo to the council.
Well,
I
that
would-
would-
Remind them.
It's kind of a gray area that they should be involved with as well. It's not a bad idea.
Oh, yeah.
Particularly to the real estate committee.
Particular to the real estate.
Mr. Chairman, I would just chime in, also Robert Flanagan, city planner for the record. I would just chime in that in Attorney Lacy's memo, the commission has 35 days to review this proposal. So if for some reason you felt you needed more information on a referral, as long as the 35 days didn't elapse until the next meeting, which it generally doesn't, you have time to ponder the referral. I know sometimes when I get the referrals in my office, there's a timeline associated with it. Council or real estate committee's meeting on such and such a date, and they'd like to have this referral back. But Mr. Weiner was very fond of saying, in respect to site plans and special permits, that time is on your side. And it's really one of the only friends that you do have. So if you're not comfortable with a particular proposal, you have 35 days to make a decision on it.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
And we certainly, I mean, our office would certainly come and speak to you about any subject. Not that we're the experts, but I think we've spoken to Historic District, and I don't know if anybody else, but I think it's always good to pull out the books and review it. It's good for us, and hopefully we'll be helpful to the commissions and the boards.
No, I think once a year to come out, like you did tonight, it's very good. It really is. We appreciate it. Thank you, Mr.
I enjoy
Flanagan.
it.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah, have a good night.
Thank you.
Yep.
Such a good opportunity of time. Our next order of business is City Council and other referrals. We have Connecticut General Statute 824 City Council referral dated 11/9/16, reference to 20 and 22 Winter Street, Assessors Map 55, lots 20 and 22.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, in your packet you will see this evening on page 6 of your electronic packet a memo, a letter from the town and city clerk, Therese Pack. The City Council on November 9th voted to refer to the Planning Commission the request of Mr. Daniel Satula to convey to the City of Bristol lots 20 and 22 Warner Street and Maple Avenue, as shown on Assessor's Map 55, totaling 4.43 acres. The next item in the packet is a letter to the mayor from Attorney Lacy, dated November 2nd, to attach this to the agenda. And then we have a letter from Mr. Satula, and it explains his proposal, and I'm not going to try to speak for Mr. Satula, he can speak for himself. And then there's a locator map that shows the parcel outlined in blue. And this was land that was dedicated open space from a subdivision that Mr. Satula had developed. And that's all I have at this present time, and I'd like to come back after Mr. Satula speaks. Thank you.
Would you care to speak on this?
I didn't plan to, but I shall.
Okay. Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Daniel Pisatula, 135 Deborah Lane here in the city of Bristol. Yes, I've owned the property since '91, and the subdivision of that property, okay, which is 24 acres, was approved the last part of 1995 and by the Planning Commission, the Wetlands Commission in 96, and the Planning Commission in 96. Within that space, okay, within that subdivision, 24 acres, there is the Polkville Brook, which is a crucial brook to the water resource for that whole northeast corner, or northwest corner of Bristol down into the, actually, ends up in the New Britain Water Company land. So it's a primary feed to it. The main concern at the time of the approval of the subdivision, oh, and by the way, before I go, that was the first open space subdivision that was done in the city of Bristol. This is this one here, Willis Waste. The primary concern, which is a concern as I speak to you, and if you had an application today, okay, was preservation, okay, of water courses. Going back a little bit, if you guys gonna be bored if I
No, we like history.
Okay. Going back in time, there was 2 ponds on that Polkville Brook. The one before the, west past Liberty Baptist Church, immediately past Liberty Baptist Church, between Nelson Farm Road and there. And the lower one, okay, which is part of the property that I own now. Both ponds with the 1955 flood were, there was a sand, Monaco had a sand operation making septic tanks and whatnot back up on a piece of land my father developed, Ashley Road, and the entire area there was just open. There was no control, nobody had any controls of that. Anyways, with that storm, the hurricane of 55, we all know who've been around here what it did. It filled in both ponds. The soil types in there, when I went through, okay, for the subdivision, I had David Lord soil scientist, very, very well regarded in the area. He came in and everything was flagged, okay, as a wetland area. Beyond that area, okay, is the southerly side down to the bridge on Water Street. That is the only area that is out of the wetlands, but it's in the regulated area. So looking at the entire parcel, okay, what isn't dedicated or designated as wetlands is in the regulated area. So there's nothing that can be done with it. The second factor there is that the property is totally fenced in. And I'm sure you've all been by, there's a steel guide rail fence all along there. And that was done when the city in 1972, okay, widened Maple Avenue at that point and straightened out the course because it went up into the hill. So by doing that, they were very close to the pond that is now on my property, and they had a fence. So they reserved the right of no issue at that point, okay, through acquisition of the existing property owners to fence the property and, right there at the pond and designated wetland area, because wetlands was just coming into effect there, gateway. So the entire piece, as I speak to you today, okay, is not accessible. It was known to be that, okay, when we approved the property, and the consideration wasn't really concerned about it because Liberty Baptist Church at that point had said verbally they would take the land. So Liberty Baptist Church, had plenty of access and so forth. So as I speak to you, you can't do a thing with it. Nothing can be done. The most important thing that can be done, okay, is the preservation of that area due to the water course on it and so forth. You've been all by there, haven't you? Mm-hmm. Want to see some pictures? Sure. Took some today. The happiest one, the one that I'm most pleased with is this was taken. I'm sorry?
When you talk, just go on the mic.
Is look at the water. The rain.
You gotta go on the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. Look at the water from yesterday. And that's showing you how important. I'm sorry. That's showing you how important this is.
Is that in the search?
There you go. All this modern stuff. I have my glasses on. What school is that? Here. Leave my glasses on. There you go. Okay, I'm going to go back to, well, that's too loud now. The most significant factor that I saw this morning when I was there is that there's actually water running in that brook today. The brook this year has been the lowest that I've ever seen. Again, the water coursing all the way down through off of Burlington Avenue takes care of that entire section of town, and that flows down into the watershed property that's owned by the city of Burlington. A couple interesting points about the property also is that it was originally purchased by the Bartholomew family in 1857. They were the owners of the property that I bought it from. The estate passed down through. They were the owners of the property all the way through. The property on which we're talking this parcel is registered as a historic site because they had constructed a factory there. And if you look at some of the pictures, you're going to see the existing foundation still there, the piers and whatnot. Could never touch them, can't touch them. If I were to go in there and take one stone out, I would be in trouble. So that's a very significant factor, okay, in addition to the open spaces next to the subdivision, the wetlands restrictions on it, okay, and the historic value of the site. So we talked about access, no access. We talked about the significance of the water. We talked about the historic values. And also, if you look in those pictures, that property has, okay, the only waterfall in the city of Bristol. If you go there today or tomorrow morning, go through from where the pond was filled in and down to the bottom of the courses down, there's a drop between it. It's ledged in there. It's probably, I'm going to guess, maybe a 20-foot drop over a course. And if you can look at the pictures, you'll see the water running down through. So these are significant factors. Now, my reason for the request to submit this to City of Bristol. 76 years old. You read about people in the paper every single day, and God bless them. I've got to start thinking, okay, where I am, where I'm going. My family doesn't want the property. The property, okay, should not be, can't be sold to anyone for the mere fact that, there's no access to it. The restrictions that are on it due to open space when the subdivision is approved, the restrictions by wetlands, and also we're going to go into a couple of other factors. Another big regulation out there is 490, which is the Forestry and Agricultural Statute. And if you read that, you would be shocked to see how much control, okay, that has over land use boards. And unfortunately, a lot of land use boards don't really know about that much because they don't see it very often. So, they're saying that any time there's an opportunity that the land comes up, okay, and it's going to protect the overall character of the area and protect the water course, okay, this municipality of 169, the state, should look at it, particularly if it's, to be bought right. I don't know how far we go back, but back when Nelson Farm was developed in 1985, I think it was, the state of Connecticut, City of Bristol, co-shared the expense, okay, of the purchase of what we now know as the Nelson Field. The sale price at that time was $1.6 million. Of that, it picked up all the entire water course, okay, coming down Maple Avenue, and also the water course that is, I'm trying to put it, this side of Mayhew Street, that little hollow there, all that swing. So a lot of that, okay, is designated wetlands. I'm going to say probably 35% of that entire parcel acquisition is wetlands. In the city, the state paid a lot of money for it, but the big thing was they wanted to protect that water course. Just to the west of my property, between my site here and the Liberty Baptist Church, the city currently owns a parcel of land. I think it's probably about an acre and a quarter, which is in wetlands. Most people own that, but check the records, it's there. So I'm saying that I want to do something with this. I would like to see it preserved, and with the other areas that are owned by the city and state there and this parcel, and considering what's going down through, okay, down to the water course of the Britain Water property, my donation to the city of Bristol for $1 would be of the greatest interest in the city of Bristol and the state of Connecticut, for all practical purposes forever, because they have control that can be done there. Anyone, any questions?
Anyone have any, Mr. Flanagan?
Yes, Mr. Satula, thank you for coming in this evening, and thanks for that lesson. I tried to call you back the other day, and
I did.
I didn't connect with you. I know you.
I wasn't at the casino either.
I had a couple of questions just for the 3 years that I've been here. There was a permit issued within the last year or so for the property, the building lot immediately adjacent to this on Warner Street for earth moving.
Lot 49.
And at one point, was that particular parcel, was the open space part of that parcel? If you could just flesh out some of the details on that.
When the subdivision was approved, okay, the final approval, of course, was by the Planning Commission. referrals from the zoning commission for the OSD first, the wetlands first, and then next, okay, and then the planning. When that parcel, when the property was approved, that area, lot number 20 and 22, okay, were designated the open space wetland area.
Okay.
In 208, I had a customer, okay, that wanted to buy the lot, and they wanted, okay, that wetlands area. So I then went in and I combined the two parcels, okay, based on the goodwill, and, never given the deposit back as they walked out on me, and but they never took it. So I'm saying, I'm going back to the original approval of the subdivision 96, where that lot 20 and 22 were approved that square inch for square inch, no change there, and established lot 49. Now to answer your question about Robert, all along Water Street, the development of that land, we had to remove some sand. And in order to get the lots to where they were developable and buildable. Lot 49, okay, with the original plan of development, with the original plan that was approved, allowed for that earth removal all the way through, okay? That was all approved, so all the lots we did, including lot 49, which has not been done, was approved for earth removal. So nothing's wrong there. I did come in, okay, a year ago, May or June, and I came in with a site plan for it to get the earth out of there, because most people, there's about 3,800 cubic yards of earth that has to come out of there. Most builders, okay, or most buyers of that lot are going to come in and say, what am I going to do around the 4,000 yards of sand? So I came in and I did get a earth removal permit, no problem, wetlands, zoning, no problem at all. And a part of it, okay, with grading and whatnot, did go into lot 22, okay, which was approved.
So I guess my question is, and thank you for all that information, appreciate it, and that's exactly the way that I remember it. But conceivably, could this lot line be erased between lot 49 and 20 and 22? And couldn't they be merged and then the building lot sold along with the 4.4 acres of wetlands? Is that...
No one wants it.
I mean, and theoretically, is that possible?
We did it once. We did it in 208, walked out. The only time I ever had anyone with any interest in it.
But theoretically, that could you could remove that lot line, and the building lot 49 would be merged with 20 and 22 for an entire parcel of wetlands and then a building lot. So,
at 76 years old, and having been in real estate all my career, okay, building mostly as a real estate appraiser, conceptually and reality are two different things. Reality is the true answer. So, suggesting what you're going through, not going to work.
So what plans do you have for 49?
That's all there's a lot. Got an earth removal permit, hopefully this spring. And we had a couple of, interested parties looking at this year, but, they don't want to get involved. And the sad part about it today, young lady? There's so many lots. There's over 50 lots for sale in the city of Bristol. And let me tell you, the dead flat ones like here aren't selling for a whole lot. So if you've got a lot that has exceptional features, such as this lot, okay, where it's a side hill lot, and also looking at those pictures. If you look at the picture along Water Street, that fence comes down into lot 49. So the access at that point is not going to be the 100-foot wide. It's going to be like only 45 feet. Well, I don't think they'll let me take the fence down or shorten it up, maybe. But yeah, combining it back together. So again, the greatest use of that property, okay, would be the preservation, as I have done over the years. And I'm getting older, and my kids don't want it. There's a provision in the trust, okay, that if I ever pass away tomorrow, God, they'll let me have it, because I can get through this, that they don't want it. So it ended up, with conference, and things would just go on, and eventually, they just sit there. And nobody's going to, I'm going to heaven, by the way, nobody's going to email me up there and tell me, you owe taxes on or something, to pay your insurance, and pay somebody walked down the property. So that's basically it. Just other thing aside, I think it's a wonderful opportunity for the city of Bristol. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for the water, because that water runs down to Britain Water Shed, okay? And it runs down into the wells that feed, down on Main Street. All that water goes in there. And if no better lesson than this year with the problems that we are, have here in Bristol, and to remind other municipalities in the state, that water's got to be saved, and who can save it better and protect that land than the city of Bristol, no issue.
Thank you. I don't know if Mr. Strongman had any comments.
Well, I guess I would ask a question to Mr. Satula. If, as you say, there's no access to the piece from Maple Avenue, no access to the piece without permission from Liberty Baptist, supposing if the city were to take it over and needed to get in to clear the waterway and everything else, how would the city get equipment in there?
With the city owning the fence, I don't think it would be an issue.
Well, which fence is that?
Along the entire piece of Maple Avenue and along the Water Street. Did you look at the pictures, Paul?
Is it graded where it's possible to access it from Maple Avenue?
Not Maple Avenue. You could do it, okay, off of Water Street. But what would be the particular reason? I would question why you would want to go in there.
Well, if the city is the owner and custodian of the property and a tree comes down in the brook, as you say, the brook is the feature.
I guess the same issue would be since 1972, since they've owned the property, because it does, this property doesn't butts it. They've maintained it, and they haven't gotten into the 1.2 acres or 1.4 acres, which they own just west of this parcel between me and Liberty Baptist Church. That issue would have to be faced. I think a random tree falling down. I live next to the watershed, okay, I've never lain down there. I mean, there's trees all over the place down. Get a windstorm down there. I mean, you can look outside of my house and you're going to see 20 trees on the ground. They're not cutting them. And the only large trees in there, okay, the old pond, that's all a brush type of tree. And if you look at some of the pictures, they're not 50 to 60 and 75 feet high. The only taller ones you have are down at Water Street, and they're, at random. And again, if they wanted to go in there and cut them, they would just have to take a section of that fence out and bolt it, drive in there, cut them, and go back on.
So then what, if that maintenance is not really an issue, what are the issues that you feel are burdensome to you that you can't handle?
Can't sell it because it's designated open space and wetlands.
You can't sell it.
Right. And when I die at 107 years old, I'm not going to be here to go in and cut a tree the next day.
But trees can stay on the ground, right?
Right. There's a couple there now that are down. That happens. I don't care what woodland area you go to the state. And just stand there and look out, okay, you're going to see trees down.
All right. Well, I guess the commission can decide. Obviously, it was set aside for open space. And it's your decision whether you feel the preservation of that open space is best in the hands of the city, if it's best in staying in Mr. Satula's hands after what you've heard, or if you think somebody else should be encouraged to take it. That's a question that you need to answer.
Commissioners, want to comment?
I just asked a question earlier, but if it's feeding New Britain's watershed, have you made them an offer, the same offer as well? Or I get the whole trees down, water's going to run, it's going to find its own natural course. So trees down don't need much.
Again, if I can go back onto my experience, okay? And as probably some of you know, I sat at your for 16 years. Okay? Learned a lot in those days, okay? As an appraiser, I got involved in a lot of properties that were water issues. The Britain company doesn't have to own 1 square foot of that land because they have the water reservation right of the water coming down through it. No matter whose property it is, they have the control of it. So there'd be no reason for them to own the land.
Not to go too far afield here, Mr. Chairman, but Commissioner Howe, we have aquifer protection regulations here in the city, and there's been designated areas that are set aside that are protected, and the Zoning Commission is the aquifer protection agency in the city. For instance, no new automotive uses can take place within that area. It's designated on the map. I can certainly show it to you at some time. So there are protections already built in, and I don't know if that answers your question, but there is water protection already built in.
Right. Yeah. Okay. word my question right, I guess.
That's fine. Mr. Chairman, also, I wanted to just point the commission in the direction of your plan of conservation and development. On page 36, excuse me, policies, this is the land use section, preserving open space. Page 5, again, page 36, 5.3 policies, 5.3 5.35. The plan directs the city to give attention to quality, size, and location of open space parcels proposed through the subdivision process to assure that they become assets and not liabilities. And I just wanted to share also, it was a conversation I had with the Director of Public Works, and he expressed to me that the Public Works Department does not have any interest in acquiring this property. Just wanted to share that conversation, and he's the director.
In terms of procedure, I mean, do we know if the city wants the property if it was given to them? I mean,
at this time, we have not reached out to any other boards and commissions. You certainly could make a referral to the Board of Public Works. They would be the ones who would be in charge of the caretaking of the property. Perhaps the Conservation Commission. They play a role in looking for open space and connectivity, that kind of thing, the open space plan. Those are the two boards that just come to mind right off the top of my head. And you have 35 days. You certainly could continue this. I don't mean to keep asking Mr. Straudeman to jump in, but he has a lot more experience with this type of activity in Bristol. And I was just wondering if Mr. Straudeman had any ideas about how you should proceed, or if you referrals to other boards and commissions, if you had any other ideas. Not to put him on the spot, but I guess I just did.
Well, I think if the request was made to the City Council, I think the City Council wants inputs from the other departments. They can ask for it, unless you feel a report from the Public Works Board, the Park Board, or whatever other board is going to help you decide whether the city should accept it. As you heard from Attorney Lacey, your guide on 8-24 is really your plan of conservation and development. And Bob just read one example of one of the policies, and maybe you want to hear from other departments to know whether this piece will be an asset or a liability to the city. But typically, I think the question of whether other departments have interest in it is one for the City Council to ask.
so, if we ask the other departments for referrals on this, that they want it or don't want it, and it comes back that the city departments don't want it, and if we made a referral to the City Council noting that, and the City Council says we don't want it because no department wants it, and Mr. Satula has to retain it as is. Is that correct?
I believe you're correct, Mr. Chairman. And as I was engaging Mr. Satula with the dialogue, it's his opinion that if it merged with the other building lot, that it's not saleable, or it just remains as it is, and it's there. It's just there. You talk about departments and commissions too, so you would
both
conservation commissions and departments, yeah.
Right. Great.
Just one final point, Commissioners. Regardless of what Mr. Veselka said, he is not the law.
Right.
440 is the law, 824 is the law, and whatnot. His comments mean nothing. You are required as a commission to abide by regulation, which is set by Connecticut General Statute. And to be quite honest with you, and I'm a truthful guy, I haven't paid taxes. My calendar's 4 years. The city will own the land. Take me to court. Court's going to say, take the property. Amen.
Commissioners, any other comments?
I think the only thing that I'd like to have a better understanding is that trees fall, I get it, it's all open space, but we've had an open space where there's been, runoff ditches, ditches and stuff, where we know maintenance has to be done. So I would like to have something more direct about what they feel the maintenance of this property would be. I guess it would be Public Works.
Or whoever would be in charge of it
Yeah,
from the
it's
city.
not a park, it's, and we do know people go on it at different times. People do hike and stuff, so.
No one goes on it. Never.
No one goes on it at
Never.
all? No one goes to that waterfall?
I think it kind of lands into the...
Oh, excuse me, the bear do.
The bear.
The bears go.
Okay.
It kind of falls into the enhanced community character. That undeveloped land in that neighborhood, you start trying to mess with it now, you've totally changed a character of 30 plus years. I can remember that being there.
Right.
So
So outside
I tend to
of,
agree with them.
outside of understanding what the city may think of that would be considered maintenance costs for them, I have no problems with having this conveyed to the city.
Mr.
Commissioner
Chairman.
Barker?
If I can ask Mrs. Satula, what made you acquire this land in the first place?
Would you kindly state that again?
What made you acquire the land in the first place?
Profit.
Okay. Okay. I just see a piece of property that nobody can use and no reason for anybody to believe anybody wants. So, I mean, eventually it's just going to be land that is there. And whether or not somebody really owns it, or let's say if it does come down that, here, say you get it now, you're foreclosing on it, or whatever. I mean, at what point is this just an academic exercise?
Through the chair, I don't get the vote, but I have a couple of comments. You knew I was going to say something, right?
Yes.
I remember this piece as a kid, and if you look at those pictures very, very closely, that waterfall and the stone that waterfall comes over from the pond that used to be there, it's absolutely gorgeous. It really is. And one of the things I think that bothers me, and I don't know how much open space there is in Bristol, I'm sure there's a lot, but I don't know that we as a city have done enough to figure out how to use it better. There's probably other pieces of property like this that are just sitting there. That use them. Spend some energy to figure out how people can access it, use it, and make it useful, because it's a beautiful, I mean, it used to be. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Any other comments?
Just how we vote on it. Everybody's in the same consensus that they keep it.
Commissioner Soares?
The value of this property as open space, I don't think is in dispute. And that's the reason it's there as open space. So our central question is, does the city want to be the one that takes care of it and owns it? If not, who? Because I think pretty much it's at its best as open space.
Commissioner...
And I think the question of, does the city actually want it, needs to be asked officially.
And again, what I said before, the city requires developers to provide this open space. They get them to do it, and then the city doesn't do anything with it. They don't make any attempt at all to do anything with it. And that bothers me.
Well, it depends on whose open space, who's charged with taking care of it. That's the issue.
The developer's not going to turn it into something that, you know, there's no requirement for him.
I know that.
Other than to donate.
I just raised the question as to, that's the only question, who takes care of it now?
What takes care, what do you need to take care of? Open space. It'll take care of itself.
Who's responsible for it?
So there have been a number of ways to deal with this. Other developers have had the open space, I forget what they're called, but it's built into subdivision, so the landowners of the subdivision participate in it.
Oh, conservation easements?
Thank you. You know, I mean, but obviously the subdivision is done here, so that's probably not a useful one. They have conveyed it to, does anybody know how many other sites have been conveyed to the city? Open space?
I don't have that number, Commissioner Chassie, but I can tell you that 16% of the city is open space. Parks and active, recreation are 250. Passive open space, water supply is 983 acres, and private open space is 462 acres for a total of 2684 acres, or 16% of the land area of the city. And I'm reading from here, right?
That's okay, that's okay. And personally, I don't care if it ever gets figured out how to get it to be more usable for anybody, because I'm a true believer in open space that just stays open space. And should never see a footstep.
I think it should see a million footsteps. I grew up as a kid, grew up in the woods, climbing the trees that fell or getting
But I
through the
mean,
brooks.
purposely put access
Right.
roads or
So that's my
something like that.
whole point, is the central question here is, does the city officially want it? And I'll leave the word maintenance out of it. Does the city officially want it? And I think you raised a good question, Marie, about if it needed maintenance, I think, I'm paraphrasing you, then what is it exactly they would have to do, if anything? If we can determine that, maybe that's what we want to do. But I think the question is who has it, who owns it. I don't think we want to change it here, or anybody wants to see anything else on it.
Rob made a very, very good point about the total, well over 1,000 acres up here in the city of Bristol, what was 60%, is that right?
16% of the total land area of the city is open space.
The crucial thing that I would like this commission to keep in mind is that the water course. Protection of that, ownership of that property, okay, gives the city protection not only to the city, but to the city of New Britain and the water. And if for no other reason, for my offering to deed it to the city of Bristol, $1, I would think that would be a huge, major consideration.
One of our policies, in our plan of development is promote public access to open space, maintain it in terms of quantity and quality. So,
sir, if the city of Bristol, who owns the fence right now all along Maple Avenue and Warner Street, wanted to open it up so people could drive in there and whatnot, they could take some fence up.
I think we should send
I
it back.
can't do it.
Send it to council, let the public speak on it. You know, send it back to them, give an option to see what they say about it.
Well,
Private public land, you want the land to be used to the residents, send it back where they got a chance to ask about it, to talk about it. Give them a shot at it.
so if we put a motion that, either way, the city should, and Mr. Satua wants to give it to the city, and basically, if it's a positive referral to the city council, if they want it, could agree with us, or if they don't want it, they could override us, and then that's the end of it. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, you have a way of crystallizing the moment here.
Commissioners, any other comments? Commissioner Howell?
No, I'm good. I'm wait to see what happens.
So, and I think this was brought up before, that if we make a recommendation and they approve it, then Mr. Satula gets $1 in his pocket and the city owns it. If we make a recommendation not for the city, then the city council could override us as long as they have a 2/3 vote. Correct? Okay.
That's correct, a supermajority.
Supermajority, okay.
5 members of council.
I know, okay.
Man, the
Yes, go ahead.
There's no question about it, Rob's going to agree with me. The referral from the city council is that because it's a land use issue,
Right.
it had to come here.
Oh, right. No.
Right.
That's true. Okay. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to send it back to council. I'm not sure how to refer it, but
Go ahead, Mr. Flanagan.
Commissioner Howe, I think the wording is, you need to, they made a referral to this board.
Okay.
So you need to then receive that referral and make a recommendation back on the referral. You can't dictate to the council how to do their business, even though we all might have it in our minds that we'd like to do that. Not me as an employee, of course.
Oh, of course, yes. So basically, if you want to take a motion, you can say that, a referral to the city council, the planning commission.
Recommends
Right.
conveyance or does not recommend
Right.
conveyance.
That they should take the property. So if you want to try it, we can tweak it.
If you don't want to do it, don't
I'll do it. Just I'm trying to figure. Still working with a brain injury. Give me a second.
No, you're right, you're right.
Don't rush.
You're doing good, though.
I'll make a motion.
Would recommend to the city council that the city take ownership of whatever the lots numbers are, or $1 for use as open space. I'll add my own 2 bits that they actually maybe do something with it. Instead of,
Can I even add the 2 bits as part of my motion?
Well, make sure you add in the numbers, the 20 and 22 Warren Street assessors map. As part of the motion.
Assessors map 55, 4.43 acres.
Right.
On the assessor's map, what was it, lots 22 and 23?
20 and
20 and 22 for 4.4 acres back. Okay.
Second.
Do you want to make reference to the plan development?
It's
Thank you,
consistent.
Commissioner Soares. Yes.
That it's consistent with
As
the
per
plan of
Form
thought.
5,
35. Consistent with plan.
consistent with plan. Plan of Conservation 2015, Plan of Conservation and Development per 535, the open undeveloped land. Right?
And I'll second that
Okay,
again.
motion was made and the motion was seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Satula. Merry Christmas.
I was just coming up to say that, Al.
We do thank you for your generous notion, what you're trying to do.
We're off the record now with the motion, so we're all set.
Actually, Mr. Tula, we're not. The tape is running, we're still in session.
If I were a member sitting here, I would have done the same thing you folks did earlier.
Thank you.
Alright.
Have a good
Thank you again. Have a good holiday.
We move on to the next item. We have old business. There is none. Move on to new business. There is none. We move.
I have old business.
Oh, okay.
Old business?
Yeah, can I do that? Old business, it's on section 49 of the city charter.
Maybe
Can I
three,
record it?
you want 3 minutes if we say it's okay?
I would like clarification on the commission's position on...
You gotta identify.
Oh, well, first of all, is it okay if he speaks for about 3 minutes?
I've said this before, let them speak, and we've had a discussion, Bob and I, about this, so I'm all for it.
Mr. Chairman,
On the
I think we
record.
should also make sure this is really old business or this is new business, first of all.
It's old business for me. I brought this
I
up.
mean, whether it's old business for us, I'm not saying,
It's old business for
I'm
me
all for
because I brought this up.
speaking.
This is old business that we have discussed before, so technically, with a gray line, the same as this 49, it is old business. We had, well, what was the gentleman's name that came in the last time?
Michael Duco?
Michael Dudko.
Oh,
So
Dudko.
kind of, you can fold it into
Okay, I'm
that.
not familiar with the numbers, 49, 50, whatever the number is, so
It's
I'm a little dense, I need a little more
It's the city
information
charter.
for what our old business is.
Of the town chart. Do you have a copy to read it? Yeah. If you want,
Well, first of all,
I brought it to the planning commission.
Stop. Okay. I guess the one question is, before we make a motion to either hear you or not hear you, is if you wanted to be on the agenda tonight, was there a reason why you didn't ask to be on the agenda, prior to this?
Because the city charter says I don't have to, I think. But if I'm wrong, I would like to hear from the commission.
Okay. No, I don't
why
know. I'll be
I'm
honest.
not right about that.
I don't know. I'll admit it. Mr. Flanagan? This
I have read it to all of us.
It's a technicality. It's called all business proper is what the charter says, so
Okay.
that's...
This has been a discussion that has taken place since I've come on board.
Who discussed it?
It's been a running discussion that I've been...
what you're talking about.
Yeah, John. Guess we're not all in.
Hold on. Let Mr. Flanagan speak. Go ahead.
Mr. Ruiz, there is a provision in the city charter that allows folks, I'm paraphrasing here,
Yeah.
folks to address any board or commission of the city. During the Plan of Conservation and Development, there was special meetings held during the Plan of Conservation and Development, and there was public comment incorporated into that process. The process that I've inherited, there has never been public comment on a land use board or commission, planning or zoning commission, since I've been here, a regular meeting. And one of the reasons for that is that if there were sensitive issues or an open public hearing and folks came forward to try to discuss that open issue in front of the board, you might draw out some comments from commissioners while the public hearing is open. That's one of the reasons why there has never been, the way that I understand that things have transpired here, that there's never been public comment. What I would suggest to the board, though, is that if you wanted to have public comment at some point in the future, you certainly can discuss that as an item, and then we can do some research and we can provide you with some information as to whether you want to make that decision or not to add public comment. There might be, if you offer public comment, there might be some ground rules that, there's no comments on pending applications, and commissioners would know not to offer comment. But as it stands right now, this agenda has no public comment on it, and there is nothing under old business on this agenda. You certainly can add items to the agenda like you did tonight with Attorney Lacey. That's a long, convoluted way of saying there's no public comment on the agenda tonight.
Do most, I know when I was a fire chief, all our board meetings, we would start out with a public comment section. I don't know what other city departments do, and I don't know what's legal, what isn't legal, but it sounds like it's, what would be wrong?
Commissioner Posey, I can offer my anecdotal experience that in the 3 municipalities I've worked in, and in the municipality that I live in, none of those boards or commissions, the land use boards or commissions, allow public comment.
Okay. Well, so I learned something.
This has come into a hot button as to where the head of the finance board has also now added public comment to it. We all are doing public business. We should, the public, whether we always have empty seats or not, we still are a public board. So if there's anything to say that we're doing,
I tend to agree with that. I can't disagree that I wouldn't mind hearing from the public, but I would like to have it be more structured, know what they want to talk about. I don't like the fact that someone can come up and just throw something out there and we're sitting here going, okay, we don't know what this is about and stuff. So I'd like to be a little bit more structured.
That's basically what I was saying too.
Right. We have a gentleman who obviously, has read the charter, is under the impression that they have the right to do this, and yet we also have this side where it hasn't happened. So I don't know what our corporate counsel can tell us from the standpoint of, is it good practice or not practice? Is it something, how legally entangled would we get by any discussion?
In terms of public comment, basically, if someone from the public wanted to speak, we would just basically listen and not comment back to them. Is that correct?
That might be advice
like the
attorney
city
might give
council
you.
does. Like the city council does.
Right, well, if there's public comment to that city council, they can be swayed to something that's being discussed at the same
Right.
time.
But normally there's not, what I've seen, watching on TV, there's not a dialogue between the person speaking and the city council.
I can say that I was at a meeting that happened, and it was wonderful.
Frequently.
Unfortunately, our mayor was not here to see it. He was on vacation, so that's why this happened.
Okay.
But it impressed me the way that the public and the council board, at this point, there was banter, for lack of a better word. And I can say that everybody in that room had the same notion that I do, that it was good to have. I believe there was public record. I believe some of these did say that it was good to finally get that. So, 2 cents, throw it away or whatever. But
If I could, I'd just like to offer my sentiments for just 1 minute, and just, you don't have to answer, and I'm not asking you to answer. All right.
Commissioners?
I'm fine with that.
Want to speak?
Okay.
And again, I just want to reiterate that, we don't want to set a precedent, but, if Mr. Flanagan can
If you do it-
check on the city.
You already have set a precedent.
Well, then I'm
That's what
going to say
Mr.
no.
Flanagan said. You've set a precedent by not following the city charter, in my opinion, unless you think it says, the city charter says we can address any board or commission on any business pertaining to public business.
I can't say yes.
Any proper business. So, that would be proper business. So if I came up here and I said, Mr. Chairman, I don't like your attitude, and I don't think you should have a beard in November, obviously this is irrelevant and I should be ejected from the room. It's not the purpose of the reason why this is in the charter. The reason why this is in the charter is because you board members are here in part to represent the public. You're here to do public business.
Right.
So my question is, why would you not want to hear the public's opinion? You're not being held to anything. If it was a matter of you were holding public business for applicants and you wanted to have a public hearing, you didn't want the applicants to have to sit in the room and, 15 people who are opposed to a cat shelter on Depot Square come in. I understand that. You could move public business anywhere on the agenda that you want. You could limit it to 2 or 3 minutes. But this is I just don't understand why you wouldn't want it, especially with planning. Everywhere we're moving in this city starts here. So why would you prefer that people go en masse to city council and then get referred back to the planning commission to come and address something? It just doesn't.
But doesn't the public have an opportunity? The public does have an opportunity to speak about
During a public hearing on an application.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, on an application.
So-
But things like this, to come before the board and say, hey, why can't we have public comment? And I've been at
Public comment on what, though? On an application?
it could. Okay, let's.
And it belongs in a
Something
belongs.
on the agenda.
Wait a
For
minute.
example, we have the Route 6 corridors status report, which just got released this past week. So a member of the public might have seen that on Facebook because I posted it. And they might say, I do or I don't like this. What's going on with this? Hey, I just want to come and say,
Hold on.
I'm scared about bicycles on Route 6.
Hold on.
Are you going to have a workshop?
No, that's going to happen down the road, but right now it's a work in progress, and the public tonight, when we talk about it, has no say, has no comment on it yet. But hold on.
I feel like I have to defend
No, hold on.
myself.
No, I don't want you to defend yourself, but we're obviously not following our agenda. You're not on the agenda, I recommend.
I understand that.
You get, I don't care what topic we put on the agenda. I guess the, request to be seen on our next, at our next meeting. And I think it's an open discussion for us as board to find out, should we have a public agenda item on here?
How many,
We
nobody,
won't use, hold on, John, so we won't use tonight. So in January, in the agenda, there is, the folks will be here to speak about the Route 6 plan.
Right.
So in something
we're
like
on
that,
right now. So
sure, but
that'll be the next one.
I'm, for fear of not being stoned and thrown right now, in January, could we have that set on the agenda? Because that is something, we got very poor showing at the workshop for Route 6.
Right.
So now we have things on that will be on the agenda, they'll be here. Should we be able to add Sean, Michael Dudko, X, Y, and Z, John Smith?
How many minutes in a year do you think that is going to be consumed of your time to listen to the public say something that you may even think is irrelevant? I mean,
3 minutes per person.
So again, I don't mind, but I want it to be more structured, and this is not structured.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
And I agree.
It's not structured, but if it was, I would have came up here during public comment. What am I going to do? And I think I don't know. I don't understand why. What if somebody can't come to the workshop, but they can come to the meeting? So, and they only have, they might only have 2 sentences to say. It might be unimportant, but it might be significant. It might be a perspective you didn't think about.
Mary.
So we will take that in consideration of the board.
So thank you for letting me take a picture.
Next.
No new business?
There is no new business.
Staff reports. We have the monthly subdivision status report.
It's on page 10 of your document. You'll notice the Sturbridge Estates performance bond was renewed. We just have to obtain the date. But Mr. Strautman had came up to me after one of the last meetings and said the next morning and the bond was renewed. We just have to obtain the date of that. And then obviously this references the Cedar Hill Section 1 Phase 1, the bond was called. Mr. Strautman, was there one item we had discussed in the office, and now I'm drawing a blank on that. Was it the bond calling that we were going to bring up?
The only thing we're going to discuss is just to report that the street has been paved. There's some sidewalk work and other things that'll probably have to wait till the spring, but the major work items on Old Orchard Road are complete.
That's it. Next.
Route 6 corridor study status report and update.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we received a document from our consultant, Fitzgerald and Halliday, a few days ago. We've posted it on the website. I'm putting it in front of you tonight because I'd like to discuss it with you at the next meeting. And I want you to take some time to review this document. Just flipping through the document, the guiding policies are what's driving this document. And I'm just going to go through them very briefly. I'd like to discuss them in more detail the next meeting after Christmas, actually. Is it December 30th, I believe?
28th.
28th, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the consultant has identified placing priority on the reuse of previously developed sites and locations for locations of new development in existing commercial centers. If you drive up and down Route 6, you may notice there are some empty storefronts. So this is a policy guide to perhaps look at that issue. The next guiding policy is the consultant has brought to your attention is promoting new business in the existing commercial zones along Route 6 that complement rather than compete with the downtown area. The consultant also has identified as one of the guiding policies to encourage compact mixed use and walkable commercial centers and clusters along Route 6. maintain and protect the existing housing pattern in well-established neighborhoods that surround the corridor. I think this is probably one of the biggest guiding policies of this entire study, and they give great attention to detail on that. Pursue a program of economic development that values existing established businesses and helps sustain them. Create a transportation model that conveniently links all corridor components, and obviously the consultant has broken the Route 6 corridor into three components. We have first the Terryville Avenue segment. There isn't a lot of information presented by the consultant on the Terryville Avenue segment, only because of the rural character of it. They've proposed this 10-foot wide side path coming down the hill from St. Joseph's Cemetery, and sustain the small business clusters that are already there, those neighborhood business zones that are out on that western part of Route 6 in the Terryville segment. The downtown gateway, develop the downtown gateway as a distinctive area serving as a vibrant entry point to Bristol's downtown, and create a strong visual and physical connection between the downtown gateway and the downtown. If you'll see there, as we flip to page 11 of 14, there is a map that shows the downtown gateway and some recommendations on that map. And then finally, the Farmington Avenue segment, which I think is probably the most intense, it is the most intense commercial area of the city on Route 6. And one of the guiding principles is strengthen cohesive areas and varied commercial activities, preserve strong residential neighborhoods with a mix of types of housing, enhance the aesthetics of Farmington Avenue, and then there are a plethora of recommendations for Farmington Avenue, the Farmington Avenue segment. If you flip further, there should be an attachment to the back of your packet that shows the downtown gateway concept. And then finally, the final page, the final foldout, if you will, is a rendering by the consultant of what possibly the downtown gateway could look like in the future, given a development plan that may or may not be recommended by this commission. We'd be looking for ideas on this. I can tell you anecdotally that since I've been in the office for 3 years, at least 3 or 4 times a year, the question comes up about the Mamazio building on the corner. And the question always comes up, well, how could that be developed? And this is really, in the 3 years since I've been here, this is really the first plan that I've ever seen of how this corner could be developed. You may be aware that next to the credit union will be potentially 35 or 38 units of senior housing. I think to create some vibrancy in this area, some walkability, and really clean up the aesthetics, this plan is aspirational. They've knocked down a few buildings, but I think it is at least a start to get folks thinking about what that downtown gateway could look like, and I applaud the consultant for at least taking a shot at it. So, as many of you know, I am a part-time college professor, so I'm going to give you all some homework for the next month. If you could take a look at this, and if you have any questions at all, just feed them back to me through email. I'd be happy to entertain them. But if you could, just compile your thoughts, and we can discuss them at our next meeting in December. And I purposely have told the consultant to come back in January, because I want to dedicate that meeting, if we don't have any other business, if no other applications come in, to kind of draw you out and have a discussion about the study and the recommendations, so that when the consultant comes back in January, we can work them really, really hard.
So do you think in our December meeting that we would go page by page?
That is my goal.
Okay. Great.
I mean, it may take us an hour or so to get through this document.
Well, sooner than later.
And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
So our next order of business would be planner's report.
That was essentially my planner's report.
Other communications, we have attendance letter from the city clerk. I don't have that.
It's the last page in your electronic packet. It was the city clerk communicating with former Commissioner Delaria. with respect to attendance.
All right.
And it was a communication, I just thought I would include it in the packet.
Otherwise, there's no other business. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays.
Merry Christmas,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Happy holidays.
To you too, Sean. Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me speak.